I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I certainly have. Those moments where life kind of feels complicated. Those moments where, the thing that you're trying to accomplish just seems complex, or, just life itself. Maybe you're not even working on anything in particular, but just everything seems more complicated than it needs to be. There are lots of moving parts, that all need to kind of hang together in order to make things happen, and things seem overly busy, and things seem to need more work than you might have hoped. Things just seem complicated, And when that happens, or even when I'm at the beginning of something, and I look at the thing I'm about to do, and it kind of feels complicated. It feels complex. There's a question that I'll tend to ask myself in order to just try and not only see it from a different angle, but to try and conceptualize how things could be different, how things might change in a way that they were no longer complicated, that they were no longer hard. Because that, I suppose, is what I mean by complicated. I mean that when things are hard, and when things do feel hard, whether it's because it's complicated or just feels difficult, the question I ask myself is, what would this look like if it was easy? And it's a powerful question, because if you're in the midst of things feeling hard, if things feel complicated, if things feel difficult, then it's worth just kind of taking a step aside and saying, okay, things feel difficult right now. Things are hard. Everything seems complicated. The thing I'm trying to get to, it feels obstacle driven. And so when things feel like that, it's good to step aside and simply reframe it, revision it, and say, okay, what might this actually look like if it was easy? And it's a helpful question because, first of all, it supposes the possibility that easy is possible. But secondly, it gets you to think of what it would look like if that was actually the case. If the thing that you're grappling with at the moment really was easy. And I like the question as well because it can take me away from perfectionism. It can take me away from those times where I'm having needlessly high standards and I start getting in my own way. And it allows me too just to kind of refashion whatever's going on for me in such a way that all the complications are removed. It kind of gives me a different objective as well. Because when we create the structure of our lives or the projects that we're working on or whatever, but when we create them, we're not necessarily looking to make it easy. And so a good example of this quite recently for me is that I'm noticing that driving is, especially at rush hour, is increasingly unpleasant and it feels difficult. And even though it's a relatively short drive, I'm not doing some humongous commute, I always kind of flake in when I get home, kind of in the sheer relief of having got here okay and got through the traffic. And it feels difficult, it feels hard. It feels like the entire route is complicated, just trying to move through all these cars. And so when I ask myself, what would it look like if it was easy? I think, well, I could actually walk. I'm close enough to walk I mean, it's a decent walk. But if the weather's okay, certainly I could walk. And so I did the other day, and it felt good. And it was certainly easy. And there was no traffic. There wasn't a whole host of pedestrians that I had to kind of get through. I just threw on a podcast and I walked. And when I got in, I didn't feel that kind of tiredness and relief. I actually felt quite energized instead. Now, that's only a microcosm of an example, of course. But it's a question that I like to ask myself. What would this look like if it was easy? And so when things do feel hard and do feel difficult, I can always get that question back out again and ask myself, what would this look like if it was easy? And so that's a question that I'm going to invite you to ask. For those things that feel a bit stuck or difficult or hard or complicated or lots of moving parts, something that feels hard in whatever way that you decide to think of it. My invite to you is to be in that thing and look at it afresh and ask yourself, okay, so what would it look like if it was easy? And there's a really good chance, that you'll be surprised by what you come up with. There's so many projects that I've set for myself where when I ask what would it look like if it was easy, it has completely changed how I go about the project, and I've still got the same result, but without the angst. And it's possible in various areas of life to achieve the same there as well. So I hope you enjoy using the question. If you'd like to work with me directly, I'm Alun Parry from the Liverpool Psychotherapy practice. You can find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. And until tomorrow's podcast, thanks very much for listening, and I'll talk to you then.